Hi everyone, I'm Alexandria Callahan from Temple of Geek, and today we are talking with Nikki Robb, who is a fantasy author that I have just recently fallen in love with. So,
Yeah, well, gosh, I've been writing for so long. My favorite thing to do in like elementary school was create these wild stories and write them in my little notebooks. And so I've been writing for ever. But I just started kind of looking into like the world of publishing those stories in 2022.
well, okay, so you sent me the digital copy of Shadows of Veridhia to read, and so I get migraines when I read on a screen for too long. So I kept trying to take breaks, but I kept needing to know what happened next. So I just gave myself a migraine because I read it in like 3 or 4 hours. And then immediately went and bought the sequel. I cannot and will not shut up about this book. So, so you did something really interesting in the first one that I love a lot. Like, obviously, there's magic present. It's a fantasy series. You did a really good job of setting up the magic world, but it's also very much also like a political fantasy at the same time. So, how do you go about world building when you're using that many kind of layers to tell your story?
Yeah, that's a great question. So honestly, when I first kind of started creating this world, it felt very like I come from a background of playing D&D a lot. So like I'm a Dungeons and Dragons person. I love that kind of collaborative world building. And so creating the different characters and making them all feel real um was really important to me, and making sure that everything it wasn't just part of it because, "Oh, that sounds cool," like, it sounds like it could be a fantasy. It felt like I needed each thing to have a purpose in case, like, as a dungeon master in Dungeons& and Dragons, you have to have everything have a purpose, because if your characters go meet that person later, it needs to be a fully fledged person. And so when I was world building before I really had the official storyline, I knew that I needed to kind of have this fleshed out so that way wherever my characters needed to go, it felt like it was real. And honestly, that just comes down to a lot of Google documents about different things. So I have like a whole Google document just about like, here's each court and here's all of the things in there. Like, here's the foods that they eat, here's the kind of traditions that they do, here are their customs, here are the kind of like materials that they wear primarily, like, and just each court was, like, just so fleshed out before I even really started.
Yeah, no, that was smart because in the second book she travels and each court feels very distinct and very
Mhm.
different, but I could very easily visualize each thing. That was great.
Oh, thank
I
you.
have to ask because this is something that occurred to me halfway through book 2 because I was too absorbed to think about like analyzing it. Are the courts based off the seven deadly sins?
They are, yes.
Ha! I thought I was a genius when I picked that up. I'm like, well, you're halfway through book 2, so get it together. Um, okay, because that was really smart. I really like that, and it was like it was subtle,
Mhm.
but it made sense the more you thought about like what the downfall of each court was.
Yeah.
Now you're really good at the cliffhangers because each book ends on one.
Yeah.
For my own sanity, we're writing book 3.
Yes,
Book
yes.
3 is an idea. Okay, because
The
I book 2 just came out this year. I understand that we need to have patience. However, I don't have patience, and that is not one of my strong suits.
I hear ya.
And and I already ordered a hard copy of the first book so I could reread it. So
I love that, but yes, it is being written currently. It's, my goal is sometime next year, depending on, like, how things really work out. It might be a little longer than that because, it's the final one, and I really wanna make sure that I tie everything up and it really does the story justice, so, but my goal is next year.
okay, that's amazing, and it's gonna be the last one. Oh, I don't know. I think I wanted it to go on forever. But you're moving at a good clip. I'm getting answers to my questions at a good pace. Um, okay. Speaking of, are you a full time author, or do we have a job in addition to?
I Yeah, not a full-time author, I wish, I wish. I have my regular old 9 to 5 as well.
Which would make it a little harder to crank out books, I'm assuming. So, how do you balance the working a regular job with making sure you have time to write?
Very delicately. I kind of spend the time like whenever I am not writing or whenever I'm not working, I am thinking about what it is I want to write. So that way, when I get the time, all I have to do is put the words on the paper. I'm not spending that time thinking, like, oh, how am I going to make this plot point work or anything? Because I've already done that ahead of time. Um, I'm not like the most detailed outliner, but I do like to understand here's the goal for each chapter and here's the order of the chapters, like that kind of thing. So that way the when I do get my precious little bits of time that I get to watch or to write finally, um I have the idea of what I'm doing. And so it makes the most of the time that I have even when it's very minimal.
Yeah, no, that's totally fair. I was going to ask because um, everyone has a different writing process, but are you someone who, like, did you know what the beginning and end of this story was before you started it, or is this something you kind of discovered as you wrote?
No, I knew the overarching plot. That was actually the first thing that came was like, here's the overarching plot. Here's books 1 through 3. Here's like where she starts and where she ends. And all of the little stuff kind of came after I filled in the world a little more. But yeah, so I'm a big picture kind of girl. And so I have all of my big picture stuff. I have all of my like I said, here's the chapters and what their goals are. But I'm like the specifics about what happens in that chapter to make that goal work.
Mhm. Kind of. Okay. My so the I'm gonna keep talking about how amazing you are. Your the first book really kind of centers on Lexa and her the mystery around her mythica and how mythica works, and you did some really amazing world building in the first one, and it was very much this is the plot. And then the second book focused a lot more on her and Lysander and like the romance there. And normally I do not go out of my way to read romantasy or
Mhm.
romance novels. I just don't care unless it's important to the plot. Unless it ties to the story directly, I just don't care about people being in love. And you managed to perfectly weave it into the story and make it relevant to how her character develops and how she makes these decisions. And it's so good that I was so invested by the second book in them that I had to take breaks to like squeal. And it's so good. It's so well done. And I also tend to actively avoid books that are a little spicy because I don't care. And it was so well written because it was never too much. It once you were invested in the relationship, you wanted to read it. Like you it's just so well balanced against everything else, and even the moments where they were together were still relevant to the story. And it's just I'm sure that I had a question in there, but really I really just want to talk about how awesome these books are. um I am eagerly awaiting that third book, but I've made about 1,000 TikToks about it. I was talking to my husband. I said, "Poor Nikki. I promised her a review and an interview, and now I just can't shut up about about the books." I love it, and I want more. I want merch. I want something to wear. I want fan art. I want something to make it real. So, and I ask this to all the authors I interview because we live in a world of book adaptations that can get exhausting, but this is something that I would like kill to see on screen. Is that something that's at all crossed your mind?
I would love that. And like I have my background is in theater and acting. Like I have a master of arts in theater and I just want to be in the background somewhere, but I just want to be in this. I just want it so bad. I would I would love that. And I'm a very visual person. Um, so I am that person that can read something on the page and see the movie in my head. I'm very fortunate with that because I know not everybody has that. And so I love that I get to like see the world that I created in my head, and I just want other people to see it too.
Yeah, I am 100% with you because it's just the way you described each court. I'm like, I could really see it. I'm like, God, this is so pretty. People need to see this. Um, but when I was, so when I was reading, I always like cast the movie in my head. Do you
Mhm.
have like dream actors and actresses
Oh,
for just Lexa and Lysander? Let's just say our two main characters. Who?
see, it's hard for me to like pick which ones I want because like it changes. It changes every day because I'll see a new show and I'm like, "Oh, they'd be so good as this person."
Right.
But cuz like well, Lexa being mid-size plus size,
Hmm.
I wanted like this kind of badass female who has this like, curvy body
Yeah.
and but still also has so much power and is seen as that. And unfortunately in Hollywood, they're not really showing
There's
that
not
as
a
much.
lot of those. Nope.
And so I haven't really found one yet that I like really love as Lexa.
Yeah.
Uh, but there's a couple actors that I think could kind of fit the vibe of Lysander, but whether or not it actually fits, I'm not sure. But I I think everybody who watched Bridgerton thought of uh is it Reggae Von Page, I think is
Yep.
how.
That's who I had in my brain.
Yeah, yeah. So like he definitely has the right vibe of Lysander
Yeah.
and definitely a similar look. There's also the guy who played I think Alfie in Emily in Paris, I think his name was.
Mhm.
If he was a little taller, I think he
Yeah.
could fit it. But yeah, like that's the kind of attitude and vibe that I definitely see. But it changes. Every time I see a new show, I'm like, oh, they could do it.
Yeah.
Or like, oh, that person would be so great.
I also think so. I say this all the time. Not every story fits every medium. Not every goddamn book adaptation needs to be a movie.
Yeah.
This one feels much more like a TV show to me,
Yeah.
and just because we could spend more time in each court, and I think it's phrased like a TV show a
Mhm.
little bit more. And honestly, I'd like to see it as a comic book too, just to see it
Yeah.
visually. I
That
feel
would
like the
be
colors would be really incredible.
that would be so cool.
It could be a great animated series too. Like literally, I just want more of it.
Yeah.
You've crafted such a beautiful world. I just want more of it.
Thank you.
Um, awesome. Well, I'm glad you got to carve some time out of your day to talk to
Yeah,
me.
absolutely. I
This
appreciate it.
we'll put this out everywhere. And yeah, just keep me posted on that third book because
Ah,
I'm ready.
I'm working on it. I'm working on it, everybody. I promise. I know. I know that cliffhanger was brutal.
I threw my book across the room. I had to stop and make a TikTok actually because I was like scanning through. I was like, how many more pages do I have left? And then I accidentally landed on the last page, and my eyes flicked down, and I was like, no, I did not see what I just saw. And I was still like halfway through the book, and I just stopped and made a TikTok. I was like, hey guys, have you ever flipped forward in a book and not seen too much information?
Yep.
Um,
Yep.
and then I finished it, and I was like, no.
I always tell, or I've been telling my husband, I was like, man, I really should have like added some random stuff at the end, like just like a couple
Oh,
random pages,
I
because
was.
because if you flip to the last page of that book, it spoils both books.
It did physically hurt me,
Yeah.
but also, uh, now I have so many more questions.
Mhm. Oh
No,
yeah. Oh yeah.
as cliffhangers go, it was a great cliffhanger.
Thank
As
you.
a reader, it was just infuriating.
I, I know. I hate them as a reader, but I love them as a writer.
You did it. You did it great as a writer. I
Thank
just,
you.
okay, so everyone go follow Temple of Geek on everything: YouTube, TikTok, Instagram. Would you like to plug your social media?
Absolutely. Yeah, you can find me on TikTok and Instagram at Nikki Robb Author. And I also have a website, and all of those links are in my link trees on both of those platforms. So come find me over there.
Awesome. And please go buy Shadows of Veridhia. I have, and it's amazing.
Thank you so much.